Welcome to the Integrated Advisory Series, where we talk about the evolution of wealth management and how a client's most trusted advisor, their accountant, will lead this evolution. I'm your host, David Judy, and I'm joined by my co-host, partner, and good friend, Tim Coplow. Welcome back to the Integrated Advisory Series. In this episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about the why and what's happening in the accounting industry. What are some of the challenges that the accounting industry is facing? More importantly, what kind of opportunities are those challenges presenting? And Tim, you know, you've obviously spoken at a number of different industry events. You've attended lots of industry events. Why don't I let you take a little bit of a first stab then at, you know, what are you seeing as those challenges in the industry, and then we'll maybe tie into, you know, how those are going to present some opportunities.
Yeah, thanks, David. You know, I as you said, I have the opportunity to talk to lots of accountants, whether it's the firms that we're partnering with, or as you said, in industry events or different things that we're doing. Lots of challenges, and they seem to be sort of escalating right now. You know, the speed of change that's happening is happening very quickly right now. And the accounting community has also looked at doing a number of surveys. CPACanada recently did a foresight survey where they were consulting with other other accountants in the industry across, you know, public practice to, you know, large public companies, corporate clients, and so learned a lot from that, and they really saw this as a critical time for the profession to shift and to evolve. And I think in this new world with technology, and, you know, obviously, David, you lead a lot of that in our firm and are on the front edge of that. Getting your perspective on how technology change as part of this series, I think, would be important. But I think a lot of the challenges have been here for a while. And so talking through a few of these, there's probably nothing that anybody hasn't already heard.
I think, too, you know, it's interesting. This is affecting every industry. And,
right.
I don't think that we want to speak as if, you know, the wealth management industry and the accounting industry are sort of outliers and they're being disrupted. My belief is every industry is being disrupted.
Exactly.
And I think that where I want to be is I want to be on the disruptor side of that disruption. Right?
So I think that the common themes, David, are, you know, time, hourly rates, the value of traditional accounting services, trying to move and evolve to a value-based model with clients continues to be a challenge for many firms.
Yeah. So what was very interesting for me is that, you know, we use this a lot when we're talking with accounting firms and with their clients, and it's the rearview mirror windshield scenario, where, you know, in most cases, my personal experience with my the accounting professionals I've dealt with is we spent 90% of the conversation in what I would consider rearview mirror conversations. What's happened? What do I owe in tax? How much did I earn last year? What didn't I do right? How, you know, this is why I have to write the check. And we spend very little conversation, actually, what I would consider the windshield part of the conversation, going, where do you want to be? What are the challenges you're facing? What do you see as the opportunities? Do you think that's a cornerstone of how the industry does need to shift going forward?
Absolutely. I think successful firms have already made that shift, you know, a long time ago. But there's still very traditional models that are out there that are focused on the rearview mirror, as you said. It's completing the year end, completing the tax returns. It's stuff that's already happened and delivering that service. And the challenge today is that's really becoming commoditized. Technology is eliminating some of that, making it more self-serve for many clients and putting some pressure on traditional accounting models.
Right.
Any firms we talk to today, they understand that, you know, and they're focused on having deeper conversations with their clients that are more proactive as opposed to reactive, and more, as you say, windshield focused. So what does the future look like? How can we help you? And so I think, again, looking around the world, this is why this wealth management model is starting, has been a cornerstone of successful firms.
And it's an interesting phrase. So I want to take a little bit of time on that in this episode, because we use the term wealth management, and my history is that means that you're investing money.
Right.
Okay. So maybe you can spend a little bit of time talking about what our definition is, what we perceive as being wealth management in the future.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. I think, it is a tough term. If you were to go and ask people in the industry, I think everybody would give you a different answer, and for sure accountants would give you a different answer. It tends to have a feeling of product, or it's some kind of a service. But when you really get into wealth management and the true definition of what it's meant to be a philosophy of serving clients and a client experience. Okay, it's meant to be comprehensive. It's meant to start at the planning stage, focused on their goals, what's most important to the client, and ultimately be able to then provide advice to help them achieve their goals. And the challenge is, and what a lot of firms, as they've experienced and moved into the wealth management philosophy, is that it can't be just one segment of it. You can't just focus on planning. Okay, you've got to be able to truly get the value out of the advice. There has to be implementation.
Yeah, you have to be involved in implementation.
Right. Otherwise, it's just an academic exercise, and there really is not a lot of value that's added.
And I'm smiling because I still remember my first experience and saying, we've done a great job, and this is some of the first firms I've worked with. Would you introduce me to some of your clients? I mean, I'm a person who built their business on referrals, and the answer back was, more than happy to do that. What my process is this. I tell my client that here are 3 names of people who I think do a reasonable job, and why don't you call them and then you can figure out who you want to deal with. I'm like, well, if I'm a client, I'm not really sure. I'm asking you because you're my trusted advisor. Right. Do you want to speak to that a little bit? And sort of maybe where we've seen the transition in firms from being this throw them a list of names to actually saying, I'm going to be involved in this process with you?
Yeah, I still think in Canada today, that's still a challenge.
Yeah.
I think in other places in the world, they've evolved, their regulations, as I said, have evolved to allow them to actually take part in implementation. Whereas, in Canada today, there are some challenges around how to be compensated if you are taking part in that implementation. So we still see some roadblocks, but that's changing very quickly here. And I think the mindset is also shifting and understanding that we have to move into more value-added planning, execution types of service offerings to accounting clients. And so it is a shift. And I think it's going to continue to advance. We're already seeing many of the larger firms in the country. I use BDO as an example. I know many of the people that are leading those divisions that are already embracing this type of a concept. They're not sort of just saying to clients, here's a few options, I have no risk. You go figure it out on your own. Yeah. My experience in working with you, David, when we first built that initially, was firsthand. When I would do that with clients, we'd often be giving them a couple of options, say as an investment firm, and normally at the end of those interviews where they'd interview a couple of choices with us, they'd look me in the eyes and they'd say, what do you think?
Sure, you're the trusted advisor.
And I'd go, well, really, it's kind of up to you. It doesn't fly.
Right.
And if it also doesn't show a lot of confidence. So you've got to be able to be confident in the recommendations that you're given, and clients will appreciate that and see value in that.
I agree 100%. And if you're not willing to put yourself out there and say this is how it works, and I think that's how our relationship first started. Right. Was that the firm that you're associated with, we collaborated on a lot of different files before we actually formalized a business model. One of the things that you touched on, and we're going to touch on this in a future episode, is the how. And obviously, it's taken us a decade to really fine tune a lot of our engagement agreements with clients, ensuring transparency, ensuring that we're working and following institute guidelines to make sure compensation is in line and clients understand how that works. So that's a big part of the how. But that's hindered a lot of people in getting into the business. So, I think we a lot of times talk about our strategy we want to focus more on the who than the how.
Correct.
And we talk about that in every aspect of what we do. We're an organization that doesn't want to sit there and go, let's take 4 or 5 years to learn how to actually do this. How do we find the people that really know how to do this already?
Right.
And just put it in place right away and build good strategic partnerships. Right. So, I think that sort of goes back to how we started working together.
It does for sure, and I think it also speaks to what we talked about in the first episode of the importance of people that have already done things before you. And
Right.
we spent a lot of time initially with the who being other firms that have had success with this. And I'll come back to the concept of wealth management. I don't think I fully covered that off.
Sure.
So defining that is really a model where you're going to start with planning, you're going to get into execution, and then you're going to ultimately be doing review and monitoring to make sure they stay on track.
Right.
That's really what wealth management is.
Right.
So the challenge is to do that if you're going to look at it not only on their business, but you're going to look at it in their personal life. You've got to be able to address things like succession planning with their business, retirement planning on the personal side, estate planning. Obviously, with the accountants being able to integrate tax into all of those discussions,
Yep.
Investment management, risk management, insurance. There's a lot there, and it's complex. And clients' needs are continually becoming more complex. And so how do you have a model that looks at all of those things and makes it simple?
Well, and that you don't need 400 people in your organization, right?
Right. And I think that's where the who, back to your comment of looking at U.S. firms and what they've been very successful at sort of pulling that all together.
Right.
Okay. And what they've realized is they don't need to do it all in-house. They don't need to have every expert in every piece of that model in-house. And usually as firms are smaller and they're growing, that's really not even possible. There's a bit of staging of how you're going to move towards that model.
Right.
But you've got to start with that philosophy in mind. And I think that path is very, very clear. So for firms, that I talk to that are maybe struggling with what's the next step, what's the transition here, I think the path is very well laid out. You look at how firms grow. Generally what happens is they'll start with generalists. It might be a partner or two, and they're doing more traditional work and providing some level advice. Over time, what'll happen is they'll evolve, and maybe one of them will become a tax specialist because they have an interest in that. They start to specialize a little bit. You may end up with somebody then becoming into corporate advisory. They have some clients that wanted to sell a business. They got into valuations, M&A, and so these are how firms tend to evolve. They'll start from generalists, and then they'll work towards specialization. Sure. They'll add a tax group, a corporate advisory group. But what's really interesting is personal financial planning has always been a piece that's been left to other people to do. And this is where a lot of the disconnect has come, and where firms, that are understanding that realize that you can't do planning in only one part of their life. You can't just do the business planning without looking at the personal planning. It's all integrated.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really the next step in that evolution, is taking that personal planning piece outside of the banks and away from the banks, and ultimately building that at the core within the accounting relationship, so that you're looking at the whole picture of a client's life, but not stopping there. And I think that's been the learnings. There's been lots of models built, again, when we did our due diligence, where firms would just do the planning. And the challenge is to make that effective, to make it actually turn into value.
Right.
You need to get comfortable with getting into the execution and the implementation. And so what that means is you've got to have relationships or internalize investment management. You've got to have relationships or internalize insurance and risk management. You might have to bring in corporate advisory to some degree, or law. And I think the models that have been very successful are the ones that have rounded that all out.
Now, the challenge is, in the past, all of those firms had to figure it out themselves.
Yes.
And they had to grow to significant size to be able to do that. That's not the case today. I mean, the reality is that we've built the infrastructure. So hopefully these firms look at us as the who to help them and provide the how.
Right.
And I think that the disruption opportunities are significant in those small to mid-sized firms. In the past, huge investments made in technology, huge investments made in specialists in these firms. And the challenge is that how does a small to a mid-sized firm compete? Well, I believe with the technology, with the systems, with the processes that we can bring to bear, and maybe others will bring to bear in the future, there's a huge opportunity there. And without dragging all the legacy systems along with them. Right. So that everybody has an opportunity to participate in this evolution. And I will tell you, we're talking a lot about the challenges in the accounting industry. They're nothing in comparison to the challenges, I believe, in who they've outsourced to in the insurance and the investment industry. Right. Okay, that industry is ripe for disruption, and my belief is accounting firms and accountants should be disrupting that industry because I believe they're in the best position to do that.
Well, I think I think the true opportunity for the CPA profession, David, is to leverage the trusted advisor status that they already have.
Right.
Okay. And to keep the foundation of that very much in focus. So if I look at why they are most trusted, it's ethics, transparency, competency, professionalism, all of those things that build trust are what the financial and the wealth management industry needs. And
I think they're decades behind in all of those areas in most cases.
I agree. They're catching up quickly. It's
that's a good point too.
It's no different than you look at the banks today. They're hiring more CPAs than many of the large accounting firms. So
it's interesting they're focused on the who rather than the how now too. Right?
Exactly. And so they're trying to really professionalize their model, which means we've also got to go the other way as a profession into that space. So yeah, it's an interesting time, and I think just going back to some of the key things that they're focused on. So value-added billing, shifting away from time and rates. Trying to position different services that are going to be adding more value, dealing with technology, and all of that in the end, I think, comes back to delivering a better client experience and trying to really make it so that clients get access to that type of an experience in one place. Instead of having to navigate 4 or 5 different companies or firms with different specialists, with the client acting like a project manager. People today are busy. Clients in the firms, business owners, they're trying to keep up. They're trying to run their business. They're trying to run their life. There's so much demand on their time with, social media and email and all these things. It's constant. And so they need a simpler way to do this. And the trends are very clear that they like to go to one place. Okay?
Absolutely.
And I think the accountants, that's truly the opportunity, is to deliver a client experience that encompasses all those people and services and skills and makes it super easy for the client. So technology, though, David, I think is a big, big piece of that client experience going forward. If you're not in technology, you're kind of missing the boat. Yeah. And do you want to talk a little bit about where you're seeing technology going as it relates to the accounting firms?
Yeah, and technology is affecting every industry, obviously, but data is an enormous opportunity. And I think that we'll spend a little more time talking specifically about how we add value in that area. But really the key is making sure that you're leveraging every aspect of that client experience, and you're providing transparency to the client. Client dashboards, leveraging data within. We talk a lot about harvesting, your most valuable asset in your firm, which is all the data you have on your clients. Right. Why are banks getting into this industry? Okay, it's not out of the goodness of their heart. They're going, okay, well, I guess we'll do tax returns because it gives us the opportunity to collect and access all the data that's going to help them provide better products and services. I think, too, the important thing is that it's a tool to help the accountant be a better guide and to collaborate with other people. And that's this whole concept of integration is, how do we have conversations on a one-on-one basis? How do I use technology to make sure the next person that's involved on working with that client on that file is up to speed and understands what the real core issues are? And we can use technology very effectively today where we don't have to get on the phone and talk for 2 hours. We can actually create that process within the client interaction we have. And that's perceived value. Mm-hmm. We have this misconception that we sit down and we quantify value as professionals. And value is irrelevant. It's what is the perceived value that client has of the service you're providing. And at the end of the day, the highest perceived value for me as a business owner is, I want a guide. I want someone that's going to be my champion, my advocate as we go forward.
Yeah. No, it's going to continue to be a big part in terms of that experience that clients have. Yeah. Technology is really changing the experience that clients are dealing with. Client portals, I mean, even on the wealth management side, being able to aggregate data.
Absolutely.
Before, when you're doing financial planning, you had to pull statements and pull it all together. Now today, a lot of that's done already for you.
Absolutely. So and I think 24/7 for us, our technology now provides access for our clients 24/7 to see how they're doing and look at their goals and objectives. So we're going to spend a little more time on specifically the how. I want to reiterate that today is an exceptional time in the evolution of both the wealth management industry and the accounting industry. But if you can bring those pieces together and you can do it in a professional manner and not have to figure it all out yourself, that's the solution. And that's what we're going to talk about next. We're going to talk about, did we learn anything over the last 20 years? I hope the answer is yes, or the next few episodes are going to be short. So I hope you'll join us for this.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Integrated Advisory Podcast. If you're tired of feeling short on time and are looking for a better way to grow your firm, I want to invite you to download our free ebook, 7 Reasons Why CPAs Are Transforming Their Practice with Integrated Advisory. Visit integratedadvisory.ca/7 reasons. That's integratedadvisory.ca, the number 7 reasons, to download the free ebook today and see why CPA firms just like yours are transforming the wealth management world. Visit integratedadvisory.ca/7 reasons to download this free ebook today.